Okay, so we're just waiting for Sean to join. I'll just reach out to him now and just make sure he's coming along today. Yeah, so actually Sean isn't going to be able to make it today. Actually, he's got to travel. Okay, so yeah, let me kind of kick things off, right? So um, since we've had a release of agent framework on the Python side since last week. Um, Dimitro, do you have the details of kind of what went into that release?
Yeah, we added a couple of updates to the workflows functionality, a couple of small fixes, also a fix for dev UI regarding the upload of PDF files, and one change that I would like to highlight is breaking change in a couple of our chat client providers. So there was this async credential parameter that allows you to authenticate to endpoints that are hosted on Azure. So we basically renamed this async credential to be just credential. This is made just to be aligned across all different providers. So just keep that in mind in case you see this issue when you update. Just rename this parameter to be simply credential. And most probably in upcoming releases, we also we'll do more like this, small changes in terms of renaming and stuff like that as we are heading towards the GA. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Dimitro. So just to kind of like let everybody know what the team is focused on at the moment, right? So we're working towards getting a GA release of the agent framework early next year. So we have our backlog created, and I'll just put a link into the chat, right? So you can see the items that the team is working on. So the main priorities are getting parity and functionality between .NET and Python, making sure that the behavior of the APIs is consistent between .NET and Python as well, reviewing all of our public API surface so that it's basically final and there'll be no breaking changes after we do GA, and then fixing issues. So we've got a lot of customers, a lot of people using Agent Framework at the moment. So there's a lot of really good feedback being provided, and the team is kind of heads down working through those issues. So the way things look at the moment is that we're expecting to do a release candidate maybe by the end of January, roughly that time frame, and then get some feedback on the release candidate. The release candidate will be the API surface we expect to go GA with. So it'll be great to kind of get feedback on that, because that'll be hopefully the final API. Then we'll allow some period of time to kind of get feedback, allow people to try it out, and then we may make some kind of like any needed adjustments to the API will get made, and then we'll GA as soon as we've had enough feedback and we feel confident that the API surface is finalized. So one of the things the team is doing is we're doing API reviews of all of the public API surface for agents in .NET and Python, and also workflows in .NET and Python. And Sergey is actually leading the work for the single agent API review. And I'm just going to paste in an issue into the chat. So this issue is basically capturing all of the feedback that we've got from the review process. And it explains all of the changes that we're planning to make to the public API surface. So there'll be equivalent issues for Python, and then also for workflows. They'll get created over the next kind of couple of weeks. So if you want to kind of like, track what changes are kind of coming in, you can maybe take a look at these issues and you'll see what the thought process is. Okay, so I think that's everything. Actually, one of the things that we're planning quite soon is to invite the team who've been working on the application modernization tooling. So for GitHub Copilot, there's plugins available for app modernization. And what they can do is they can take your existing semantic kernel or autogen applications and migrate them to agent framework for you automatically. So we're going to invite that team along in the next either next week or the first week after Christmas to come along and do a demo of their stuff. And we'll be adding documentation to our Learn site. And we're also working on a blog post then just to explain how that tooling works. Okay. So yeah, so I think that's everything that we have in terms of announcements. So I can just open up the floor then for any questions.
Hey, how you doing? This is Clint Morgan with Kaseya. I do have one quick question. So I have a couple of proposed changes to contribute. One is for context sharing .NET. It works in Python. So I just kind of emulated what you guys are doing with that. And then one is a fallback in the case that A2A is not ready in time. I know everyone says it's going to be, but we're relying on Google. So we don't want to have a 100% dependency on that. So I created a hot swappable transport layer. So my question is, would you like for me guys to just give you that code and the proposals, or fork the repo and create PRs?
Okay, then. So here's what our kind of philosophy is at the moment with regard to changes, right? So we're very much trying to get the functionality we have delivered in, without great that's future compatible and is really reliable. So for something like the context sharing, if you think if it's already supported on Python and it's not on .NET, then that's something that we will be fixing because we want to have parity. And we want to do it before GA just to make sure that the API surface can accommodate it. Have you created an issue for that item?
Yeah, my colleague Mo has, and I responded actually to the issue itself, and then realized the following day that MEF is open source, and I could probably contribute, but I know that it's kind of an awkward time to do so right now. Given the context of what you were just talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it is something that gets us to feature parity, then that's a contribution we'd be interested in taking a look at for sure. Particularly if it's modeled or implemented based on what we have on the Python side, right? So, yeah, let me look for that issue, and we can start a conversation in that issue and figure out how to kind of move that forward, right? But that sounds like that's something we'll want to have for GA and we'll want to act on pretty quickly over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, I can drop that in the chat real quick just for reference, so you won't have to search for it.
Yeah, that's perfect. That'd be great. Then for the A2A, because the protocol isn't GA, right? It's still at 0.3, I believe. We're not going to be able to GA our A2A support. Our intention is that we will be as compatible as we can be with the latest specification. Everything may not be perfect. So we'll work if there's issues, we'll work on trying to get those fixed. It's probably not our highest priority because we're not targeting GA for that particular package or for that support. If there's functionality that you want to swap in as a customization, forking the repository for sure, that you're fine to do that. Or if there's something we can do to kind of like make it so that things are extensible, we'll consider that, so we can have a conversation about that, right? So again, if there isn't an issue created, if you could create one, and then we can continue the conversation there and kind of work out a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
That's great. Okay, thanks, Clinton. Okay, Rasmus.
Yeah, I've been looking at the new Microsoft Foundry and looking at their workflows. But as far as I can understand, it has nothing to do with Microsoft Agent Framework workflows. Is there a plan to have those two work together, or is it a completely separate team that does something else?
No, I mean, it's the workflows in Foundry are like, so there's a workflow builder, like you can create your workflow. Now they're much simpler than what's supported in Microsoft Agent Framework, but the actual, when you run that workflow in Foundry, it's running on top of Agent Framework, right? So it's the same workflow engine that's being used. You can take your workflow from Foundry and export it as a YAML file, as a declarative representation. And then you can use Agent Framework to generate the code for that. And then basically, if you want to move into pro dev mode, you can do that. Now, Jacob is actually working on this, so I may have said something incorrect here, but Jacob, do you want to come off?
I would also add that you don't have to necessarily turn it into code to run it locally. You can just run the YAML file locally directly. In fact, the implementation of the declarative stack that's used on Foundry is open source and available as part of the Agent Framework.
Okay, so the builder is only to make the YAML file then? Or I had expected I could use the projects API to actually build workflows, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Is that not intended, or is it just not ready? Do you know?
Sorry. Go ahead, Jacob.
Sorry. No, I think that's a question about the service. And when you're saying the projects API, you mean the Procode workflows library, right? The one that's built directly on top of Agent Framework?
No, I'm talking about, let me find the name. It's the one you have called Microsoft Agents.ai.Azure AI that behind the scenes uses the .projects from Azure directly.
Yeah, that's the SDK for the Azure service.
Yeah. And in that you can't do any you can't create workflows or anything. So I'm just wondering if the workflow is only there to build YAML files, and then because then we could just build the YAML files ourselves. It's not intended to be a hosting platform for workflows or not.
Let's see. I'm trying to understand. So workflows there's sort of two versions. There's like a Procode version, and then there's like a YAML version, right? The Procode version of workflows gives you like all sorts of features. You can write code, right? You can do anything. The declarative YAML-based version of workflows has less functionality, but it's built on top of the Procode version of workflows. Now, if you want to host workflows, Azure Foundry V2 allows you to host declarative workflows easily as agents. Also, if you want to host Procode workflows, you can host Procode workflows in Azure Foundry hosted agents.
Okay.
So there's two different ways to host workflows within Foundry, but it's all based on workflows from Agent Framework.
Okay.
Does that help at all?
Yes. I'm just what I'm missing is me sitting in a piece of C# and actually building the workflow instead of needing to go to the GUI up in Foundry. I don't see a way to do that right now.
Oh, I see. So we don't have any visual designers or like visual builders to build the YAML format. Obviously, you can like just, write the YAML yourself if you want, but that's not going to be super easy. So if you want to create declarative workflows with YAML, the easiest way to do it by far for now is to go to the Foundry portal, right? Where there's like a visual builder.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. I mean, you could just write the YAML.
So there's a way to import the YAML, because I haven't found that either using an API.
Oh, there is. Yeah, for sure. I can dig that up for you.
Okay, that would be nice.
Yeah.
If you want to do it programmatically, you could write your own fluid API wrapper around it, but a lot more code.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Rasmus. Okay. So does anybody else have a question?
Hi, I'm a developer with the state of Vermont, and I'm relatively new to the agent framework. I played around with AutoGen, and my use case is there's this long process that processes millions of records, and I've tried to design it in a very structured way, but it would fail for one reason or another. And I've tried some classic patterns like retrying, but that hasn't always worked. Sometimes there's some other issue that comes up in the environment, and this long function app doesn't complete. So I've tried seeing what might be out there with an agent framework, and what I've done is given an agent some instructions to start the process of this function app and then monitor it and try to run a loop to keep getting the status of it until it says that it's done. Some issues I've run into are the agent just doesn't always take the instructions. And so I have to be very interactive with it until it, you stopped when I told you to go all the way to the end. So I'm not sure if, I read some of your guidance on what are agents good for and when not to use them, like when your process is very structured like this one. However, there's a little bit of, I guess, I don't know if uncertainty is the word. It doesn't, because I've tried to design it in a very strict way, but it hasn't worked. So is there a place for an agent framework to be inserted here at some step? And what tool should I use? I've been doing it on a VM in Azure, not really doing it in really the like the best practice Azure sense. I don't think I'm using, I don't really know Foundry. So can I use Microsoft Agent Framework here? Or should I try something else like workflows?
Yeah, I can start with this one. I mean, this sounds like a very good use case for workflows, right? Because there is an aspect of what you need to do that's kind of like deterministic in terms of kind of like going through this large number of records and performing some operations on them. If you're finding that a single agent isn't being successful in terms of kind of completing the work, that's generally an indication that you need multiple agents, right? So, and you need to separate the work, right? So you might have one that's doing some element of the processing, another one that's evaluating the outcome, and they might be iterating multiple times to get to the best outcome possible. But I'll defer to some of the workflows guys. So Jacob, do you want to take this?
One other thing I'd add is for the stuff that's deterministic and what you could write in what one might term software 1.0, I highly recommend you implement that in software 1.0 because that you'll be able to test, that you'll be able to know definitely works the way you want it to. And then for the stuff that's a little bit more loose, more you need to have it process more complex or less structured data. That's when you start working with agents, like for user interaction, for language generation, for understanding intent, for diving deep into text, or understanding the various different modes of inputs that your agents can understand. But once the process is started, definitely use something that's deterministic to actually monitor it until it's done, at which point you can hand it off to the agent, or if there's an error or some other kind of exceptional condition that you should hand off to the agent to actually do something intelligent about.
So I could like do a 1.0 structured loop on this process to do the monitoring. But that sounds fine. Where might I put the agent in this then? Would it be at a level like outside of the loop?
So, I mean, it depends a little bit on what it is that you're doing with the workflow. Like it becomes a little bit application specific. But think of an agent invocation, right? Think of it like a specialized function that you program with English. That's fundamentally what a call to an agent is. And you may give it some callbacks, right, that are tools, right? Or you might expect it to give you data in a certain format if you're using structured outputs. But at the end of the day, you should still think of it fundamentally as a block of code. Non-deterministic, programmed with English, but still a block of code that you execute. So depending on what it is you're trying to do, that's how you'll structure it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm also happy to talk offline, by the way, if you've got more specific questions or you want to dive into something more specific to your scenario.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Clinton, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a response to this question?
Yeah, I was just going to throw in a couple of quick suggestions for him. For the instructions that you're sending the agent, you might want to look into POML, which is made specifically for prompt engineering to help control the results that you're getting back. And you can mix those with the either JSON or YAML workflow stuff reference back. Also, some of the long-running processes, instead of polling, you might just want to look into asynchronous calls instead of having complex polling procedures running. And one more thing I was thinking of, I'm drawing a blank now. Oh, yeah, and be careful to distinguish between what requires AI intelligence and what is just deterministic, like I believe Matthew or someone suggested. And for that, you'd want to use something like MCP or just, a pure service. That's it.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, so does anybody else have a question? Okay, yeah, go ahead, Rasmus.
Yeah, again about Microsoft Foundry and this time the agents. It seems like you can that you can have tools on the agent side in Foundry, and you can have tools when you consume it as agent framework. But it seems you can't mix those two. You either need to go full hosted tools or full ad hoc tools. Is that just a limitation of the protocol itself, or is it a bug? Or yeah,
is this with the Foundry agents? Foundry
yeah. So I mean, to make a Foundry agent, you want to have the code interpreter, for example, and then you want an ad hoc tool on your own. It just fails to try to call that, or it doesn't understand that extra tool. But then you can make all your tools using the create AI agent that makes a workflow, a Foundry agent. But then you can't host some of the more advanced tools like the MCP tools. So it seems like you can't mix and match those two together.
I believe that you should be able to mix and match those two together. Does anyone on the team know if we have tests or samples that show that?
Yeah, I can jump on this. This is a fundamental change from the new agents on Foundry compared to the classic ones in the V1. So basically, wherever tools you define the agent with, you cannot override or change that tools on the definition. Although if your agent doesn't have any tools in the definition, you can provide additional tools when you're consuming the agent. So that's more like a very different design change. Also, they added the concept of versioning of agents on the second version. So for every change that you do in your agent, it will generate a new version, and you eventually need to use that version with the extra, with the additional tools that you are using with. Regarding the MCP, if you don't provide any type of MCP tool in the definition of the agent, you can use that tool per request per se, but you cannot have any type of overriding capabilities in tools that are already defined in your agent.
Yeah, I saw the example that you made, and but it seems like the real mix and match doesn't work like it did in the old classic agents anymore. No. Okay. Speaking of that, what about the memory component? I can't see to get that to work with Agent Foundry as well.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. Can you give more details?
So up in when you make an agent, you are able to enable something called a memory component, and then it will get a tool for memory where you can save what your name is, your address, and stuff like that, and it should be able to remember. And up in their playground, it works like 50% of the time, but when building these agents via code, there's no indication that you can make these memory components.
Yeah, so that's something that we're working on with the Foundry memory team on integrating with Agent Framework. We have this; they have a separate kind of client SDK for talking to the service, and we want to. We have an abstraction called a context provider, and we want to do a context provider implementation for Foundry memory, so you can just basically add it very easily. But that's work we're going to be starting soon. It's not ready yet, you know.
Okay. And final thing, if you define MCP tools under the Microsoft Foundry agents, they actually work with Agent, but if you then go to the portal, it will say that that tool is not configured correctly. So it seems like something is broken there as well. You can't update the agent up in the GUI if you make an MCP tool for some reason. But I think that's more for the Microsoft Foundry than you guys, because you work with it.
Yeah, I think that I've seen that kind of come up in our issues list, and it's something that we're looking at the moment. We'll get that one resolved by the time we get to our release candidate.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Rasmus. Okay. So anyone else have a question? Okay, so yeah, I mean, if there are no more questions, like this might be a short session this week. I think we'll be planning to do office hours next week, and then the majority of the team are out then after that until the beginning of the new year. So we'll probably cancel the last two meetings this year. So, but yeah, for next year, or for next week, yeah, I'll try get the app modernization guys to kind of come along, and so we can do a demo of that. Okay. So thanks very much everyone for joining, and see you next week.